Welcome to the digestive system, where we will follow the journey of food as it travels through the body and is broken down into nutrients that we can use. Foods contain complex molecules such as amylopectin, which is a branched carbohydrate that's found in starch. It also contains cellulose, which is a structured carbohydrate in plants that humans generally cannot digest. Also contains triglycerides, which is the main form of fats made up of fatty acids like stearic acid and oleic acid. Proteins, which are made up of amino acids, and sugars like the lactose, which becomes glucose. All of those things must be processed during digestion. So, where does digestion begin? It begins in the mouth. Here, food is chewed and mixed with saliva, and it forms a soft ball, which is called a bolus. The enzyme in our mouth, called salivary amylase, begins breaking down carbohydrates like that amylopectin into simpler sugars, easily digestible, while lingual lipase begins digestion of fats like lipids. And that's like those triglycerides that I talked about that contain those fatty acids like the stearic acid and the oleic acid. That bolus that formed in the mouth then moves into the pharynx, and this is where swallowing begins. It then passes through what's called the upper esophageal sphincter, and it enters the esophagus. The esophagus uses muscular contractions to move the bolus down toward the stomach. Before entering the stomach, the bolus has to pass through the lower esophageal sphincter. And this is what prevents stomach contents from moving back up into the esophagus. People who experience reflux do not have strong lower esophageal sphincters. And then once it passes through that sphincter, it's finally in the stomach. When inside the stomach, the bolus mixes with gastric juices, and it becomes a really gross liquid mixture called chyme. Hydrochloric acid found in the stomach helps create an acidic environment, and this is what activates pepsin. Pepsin is an enzyme that breaks proteins into smaller chains, like tripeptides, and other small peptides. The stomach also releases gastric lipase, which helps to continue fat digestion by acting on those triglycerides that are composed of those fatty acids. Once the stomach finishes mixing the chyme, it passes through another sphincter called the pyloric sphincter, and it enters the first section of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum. In the duodenum, the pancreas secretes something really important, sodium bicarbonate, and this is what helps to neutralize that stomach acid. So we need the stomach acid, but this is what neutralizes it once it reaches the intestine. The digestive enzymes from the pancreas also enter here, like pancreatic amylase, which continues breaking down those carbohydrates and the starches like that amylopectin. Pancreatic lipase breaks down triglycerides into those fatty acids like that stearic and oleic acid, and glycerol. And then there are also protein digesting enzymes like trypsin, chymotrypsin, and carboxypeptidase. And those all continue breaking down proteins and those smaller those tripeptide chains into individual amino acids. And those are the building blocks of those proteins. The sphincter of Oddi controls the release of pancreatic juices and bile into the duodenum, that first part of the small intestine. And that helps digestion to continue as well. So we still have that chyme. It's moving through the small intestine. It's been through the duodenum. Now it's going to travel into the jejunum. Then it's going to go to the ileum. And the ileum is, well, really the jejunum and the ileum are where most nutrient absorption occurs. Enzymes in the small intestine are what finish off digestion. So you're going to have that sucrase that helps break down sucrose. You'll notice a theme here. Lactase that breaks down lactose. Maltase that breaks down maltose. So by this point, proteins have been digested into those simple amino acids, which are then absorbed into the bloodstream. Many of the carbohydrates are digested, and cellulose passes through pretty much undigested because we as humans lack the enzyme needed to break it down, which is why I said at the beginning that humans generally cannot digest cellulose. Anyway, so after nutrients are absorbed, the remaining material passes through what's called the ileocecal valve, and it's kind of self-explanatory. It's between the ileum and the cecum. And so it first enters into the cecum, and this is where the appendix is attached, that wonderful organ that people thought was vestigial and actually isn't. Then the material moves through the colon, starting with the ascending colon, which is on the right side going up. Then the transverse colon, which is from left to right, horizontal. Then the descending colon, which is on the left side and travels downward. And then the sigmoid colon. Here, water is absorbed into the body, and the leftover waste is what becomes feces. That feces enters the rectum, and that's where it's stored until the body is ready to remove it. So when the body is ready, it releases feces through the anus. The release of feces is controlled actually by two different muscles. There is an internal anal sphincter, which is involuntary. It just kind of works on its own. And once it passes through there, we have an external anal sphincter, and that is voluntary. So that completes the journey of digestion, from food entering the mouth to waste leaving the body, showing how each organ and sphincter and enzyme, peptides, amino acids, how all of them contribute to nourishing the body.